This is the German War Memorial in Chobienia in Poland. This town is located on the Oder River, or Odra in Polish. It was in Germany prior to the end of the Second World War, when it was transferred to Poland. The Polish border stood at around 30 kilometers from here when this war memorial was built, and it's got quite a curious story. This was put up in the main square in 1933. It was then turned into a Soviet war memorial, and one gets the impression that there were things here and here. In fact, it's more than an impression, it's quite a strong idea that there were plaques on that. Anyway, after the end of socialism and when the Soviet army had to leave Poland, this was brought here to, which I believe is a German cemetery, or possibly Protestant cemetery, I should say, because there's another cemetery. And so this, it says here, our fallen heroes, 1914 to 1918. There's about 60 names on this. Today the population is around 650, but then the population is about 1,300. You take half of them for being men, that's a loss of just under 10% of the male population. I suspect that the names here required some work to be renewed here. So from 1914, first person was killed, it would seem, on the 6th of August. So at the very beginning of the war, second person dies on the 22nd of August. Now we've got people here gone missing, but by the time this was put up 19 years later, I'm pretty certain the missing people were dead, and which is in the condition that exists in the First World War, in trenches, when people could just be sucked into the mud or something like that. Then that is to be understood. And people go missing in all wars, of course. Now here we've got people who died in it does say up there verstorben, so deaths. And so here we've got people dying in 1922, but 21st of November 1922 died of their wounds. So you've got there 1919, 2 and 1919. This person in 1916 probably realized that he was dead after the memorial went up. And 1916, 17 and 18. So it's a bit mixed up, if you like, this memorial. And you've got 3 people there at the bottom who went missing in 1918. Now one thing I noticed by looking at this quickly is there doesn't appear to be the same surnames over and over as sometimes one sees. So I've got 2 more missing in 1917 there, but there's the surnames are not repeated, which is of course a good thing for the families. Now in the place of where this once stood, there's now a new memorial to the dead of wars, and so let's have a quick walk down there now. This place here, I came here because it was here, this is one of the places where the Red Army crossed the Oder in January 1945. Here there was a ferry, and they managed to use the ferry to ferry troops across. To the south there's a place called Szynawa today, that was then Steinau. The Steinau bridgehead. So this bridgehead didn't last very long, in fact, because Steinau was captured eventually on the 4th of February 1945, and Konev broke out of the Steinau bridgehead on the 8th of February. And I would have to say that whereas the Oder isn't a particularly wide river, although it is, there's a lot of marshland around it, which when it came to the Battle of the Zelo Heights, it was the marshes on the western side, in that case, of the Oder, which played a really important part. Having said all that, Oder isn't wide by standards of other rivers such as Vistula, for example, or Dnieper or others, but the Soviets did cross it very easily. To the left there is a palace which is very old. Indeed, King Frederick the Great stopped here after his lost battle at Kummersdorf in 1759. And this is the main square. And to the right is in fact, I don't think it's visible from here, but to the right is the Oder River. Odra in Polish. No, it's not visible from here. And so this is now the main square. Now there was a church stood on the main square. This must have been damaged. I presume this was damaged, I don't know, during the Second World War. Probably during the battles around this area, and it was taken apart, and in its place this fountain was put there. That's my understanding. So we now, where the German War Memorial once stood, we have this memorial. Today, so it says, to the people of goodwill, the victims of war, soldiers, the prisoners of the camps, the deported to Siberia, and from the local pioneers in memorial on the 11th of November 2001. So this people who came here were largely from those territories which were occupied by the Soviet Union. In fact, Poland, the entire country, was occupied by the Soviet Union at the end of the Second World War. But those parts of Poland which were annexed to the Soviet Union, which is about half of the entire country, well, the Polish-speaking population was deported or forced to leave from there, and they came to Western Poland, where I am now. And the German population from these lands either fled or was deported. And in the case of these areas here, these people to a large extent were deported. Now, one thing we do have from the war accounts from here, particularly from this village, is that the Red Army troops caught up with convoys of people fleeing from Silesia, and they told them just to go home. Now that was quite unusual. They usually plundered and killed. The fact they may have just told people to go home, this came from German sources, is I think quite unusual. Oh, there's a dog here. Oh, there's two dogs here. Yeah. There's dog number 2. So you might want to come here to see the dog. So my objective in doing this was, I thought I'd do a video on the Steinau bridgehead and the battle for this town, and so I thought I'd have to come here to film the place, the ferry location where the Soviets crossed the Oder River. This town today has a population much smaller. So at the beginning of Second World War, it's about 1,050. Today it's about 650 people actually live here. So the population is much lower. Contrary to what is usually thought, it's actually Western Poland is poorer than it was anyway than Eastern Poland, although I think in recent years that's sort of leveled up And in fact, possibly now Eastern Poland's a bit poorer, but it was certainly Western Poland. The reason for this is because the communist regime nationalized the land, so it become these huge collective farms, and which largely in Eastern Poland, the farms stayed in private hands. I thought I'd come down here because this is the very point at which the Soviets crossed this river, and they got the ferry in working condition and managed to do it. You may see down there we've got a stork which is walking in. Yeah, I don't know if I can do it now. See, I'll bring the camera into the stork. Is that any clearer? No. You've missed the stork flying as well now. There we go. Anyway, storks flown across the river. This is the river Oder, and this is the crossing point from 1945, January 1945. Of course, this is June, and in January 45 it was a particularly cold and unpleasant winter, and it was then freezing here. Further upstream, the Oder is the boundary between Germany and Poland, but here on both sides, I'm on the western side now, so this is still Poland, and there's a look at the Oder River. So I hope you find that video of interest, and I will do the one, the Steinau bridgehead sometime. It probably won't get done until next winter, quite honest. It's because in the summer I'll go around filming, and in the winter I try to put things together, but then again I've got stuff from 4 years ago I still haven't put together. I've got stacks of stuff from 4 years ago I still haven't put together. Well, you never know. By the time I sort of get really old and past it, I'm not able to travel anymore. At least I'll have plenty of stuff to put together. So thanks very much for being here, watching this, and all the best from me in southwestern Poland.